Well, the Democratic Alliance spokesperson, Siviwe Gwarube, joins us now for a little bit more on this. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme. You're not happy. Why?
Good evening, Peter, and good evening to your viewers. Of course, look, we are not only displeased, but we reject the decision by the Speaker to refer parts of our request for an ad hoc committee to the Intelligence Committee. The reality, Peter, is that when we sent in our request for an ad hoc committee to the Speaker, we asked for a number of things. We indicated to her, we argued that there are a number of things that the President has to answer for. There are a number of things which include the fact that there was allegations that there was a large amount of foreign currency on his farm, that it was stolen, and that in fact there was an undercover investigation operation which included the Deputy Minister of Intelligence, and therefore they did an undercover investigation. And so our view was that this whole matter is going to involve a multitude of departments, of entities, and therefore an ad hoc committee is the best entity that would be able to investigate all of these allegations comprehensively. What the Speaker has done is cherry pick the allegations that she deems that can be investigated, and has essentially ignored a whole myriad of other issues which we have asked that an ad hoc committee be able to investigate. She has simply, in a very narrow way, referred the Deputy Minister to the Intelligence Committee to look at particularly his involvement in this matter, and also essentially the use of an intelligence fund in some of these covert operations. Our view is that it is not the Deputy Minister only that needs to answer some of these questions. It is also the President himself, which an ad hoc committee would have the powers to be able to subpoena the minister, various entities, including the President, to give evidence. And so our view is that we view this in a very sinister manner, that in fact the Speaker has deliberately done this in order to shield the President from being able to answer these critical questions. And so we reject this decision by her, that and that is the first part. But also, secondly, as was indicated in the clip, that we know that the Intelligence Committee, for instance, does its work behind closed doors, and that the members of that committee, whether they are in the DA or whether in the ANC, are bound by secrecy. The reality is that its deliberations, its decisions, are matters that are bound by secrecy, and we will not be able to gain access to that. And the Speaker is not responding to the national cry, which is essentially that people want to understand what took place in the President's farm, and why is it that all of these things these allegations are not addressed. And so that's why we are saying that this decision is just only a smokescreen to want to create the impression that work is being done when in fact it is not. And so that's why we want to explore our options in this matter, because we don't believe that this is the best course of action.
How did the Speaker explain it to you, the decision that she's made?
And so that's also one of our other issues, Peter, because ultimately we had sent the Speaker a request for an ad hoc committee, which she initially rejected. And then we sent another letter in which we explained why an ad hoc committee is the best course of action in terms of the parliamentary rules, and also in terms of precedent. You will remember during the Nkandla incident and the Nkandla debacle, an ad hoc committee was established in order to look at the public protector's report at the time. And the ad hoc committee had powers. You remember that members of parliament were able to conduct oversight visits at the Nkandla household. We were able to obtain a number of questions which were not answered before. And so we relied on precedent, but this parliament had done, and we made the case again. So instead of responding to the DA, we've now since learned through the media that the Speaker has in fact now referred parts of our request to the Intelligence Committee. And so that, in our view, that's wholly inadequate and doesn't really answer some of the questions that we have now posed to her. The reality also, Peter, is that Parliament has been found wanting over the past couple of years. In particular, and in most recently, the ad hoc, the Zondo Commission found that Parliament's inaction, in effect, aided and abetted state capture, because there were a number of things that Parliament could have done at its disposal using its parliamentary mechanisms to effectively stop what was happening or at least pose the necessary questions. What we're saying is that the Speaker can't do the same thing. Parliament is not meant there to be a rubber stamping institution. It's meant to find its teeth. It's meant to be a separate arm of the state that holds the executive to account. And we believe that the Speaker in this instance is simply shielding the executive to account and using a very neat solution in her mind of simply shafting this to the Intelligence Committee. I want to also just remind you that the Intelligence Committee has also been busy with the investigation into the July unrest. And it's been a year later, and we are yet to see a report that explains to us what took place, what has happened, and who must be held accountable. Regardless of what the Hawks has done today, the reality is that Parliament has been nowhere to be found. And so we can't have this happen again.
Are your members on the Intelligence Committee hamstrung? In other words, they can't do their job inside that committee? Why is it that these reports are taking time and yet you've got members sitting in this committee?
Look, I mean, firstly, I mean, committees are constituted in a way in which the majority, as you know, the ANC enjoys majority in Parliament. And so, you know, having two members on the committee, you know, is just one way in which you can influence the way that the committee works. But ultimately, the majority of the members, you know, have the final say. That's the one thing. And secondly, yes, our members on the committee are bound by by law, by secrecy and confidentiality. In fact, they can't even share some of the deliberations, or any of the deliberations rather, with even their own party, because they are bound by law. And so that's why we're saying that, you know, don't put members in the position where they have to sit on information that is critical to getting to the bottom of this. This should rather be dealt with in an open committee where members can pose questions, and South Africans, who are actually the stakeholders that Parliament should be looking out for, are the ones who are following these deliberations, similarly to what is happening with the Public Protector Inquiry. These are the things that we are meant to be doing as an institution. We're not meant to be dealing with these things behind closed doors. Ultimately, we are accountable to the people of South Africa, and we should be able to do our business in the open so that they can be able to see that we hold government to account and we ask the necessary questions on their behalf.
All right. So the fact that part of your request involves the Deputy Minister of Intelligence, maybe that aspect of your request needs to be dealt by that committee. Is there perhaps then a window of opportunity to set up another committee to look at the other issues? Has she slammed the door on that, or is that something that you perhaps could approach?
Look, it's unclear because, as I said, Peter, she hasn't responded to our request. But instead, we have now since learned that she's referred parts of it to the Intelligence Committee. But our request essentially was saying that an ad hoc committee will be able to deal with the whole myriad of things. We'll be able to deal with the police, which are seemingly involved in this matter. They'll be able to deal with issues of intelligence, which is seemingly involved in this matter. But also there's also criminal elements. And there's issues around SARS and the declaration of foreign currency in these sums which are alleged. And so an ad hoc committee is actually the most comprehensive way to deal with this, because then you are able to subpoena not just the president, you're able to subpoena ministers, you're able to subpoena entities. And so it makes absolutely no sense to then simply cherry pick the parts of the investigation that you deem fit to be investigated when there's an elephant in the room. South Africans are asking the question, what does the president know what happened on his farm, and why was this not reported to the South African Police Service? And these are questions that even us as members of parliament have. And so as representatives of the people, we should be able to pose those questions to the president in an open committee that we can be able to have the powers to subpoena, do oversight visits and the like. And right now, what the speaker is doing, she's basically constraining that kind of work and saying that only this aspect must be looked at, and essentially sending that aspect behind closed doors, to the point where we won't be able to access that information for a long, long time. And also remember that the deliberations of the Intelligence Committee sometimes serve in the House as a comprehensive report. But that's not what we want, Peter. What we want to be able to pose the questions as we are required to do, as is our job as members of parliament, to the president and those that are involved. There can't be one set of rules for the executive and the president and the people closest to him, and one set of rules for ordinary South Africans. We are all bound by law, and we should be able to we should abide by the law. And if we are not, we should be essentially held accountable.
Ms. Gwarube, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for giving us some clarity on the position that you've taken and why you feel so strongly about this issue. Thank you for your time.